Tonight on Reporting Scotland, campaigners here welcome plans to cut the maximum stake for fixed odd betting terminals from £100 to £2.
It's not a fun thing to be losing a week's wages in 20 seconds. There's no fun attached to it at all.
We'll hear from the partner of a gambling addict who took his own life. Also on the programme, the blood test that could transform the lives of people with insulin-dependent diabetes. Social enterprise who've built a village in Edinburgh to house and upskill people who are homeless. As Livingston push for promotion to the Premiership, we chart their rise and fall and rise. And UK astronaut Tim Peake touches down at the National Museum of Scotland in Edinburgh. There's been broad support in Scotland for the UK government's plans to cut the maximum stake on fixed odds betting terminals from £100 to just £2. The controversial machines have been described as the crack cocaine of gambling, with some punters losing thousands of pounds playing them. But the industry says cutting the stake will lead to the closure of hundreds of Scottish betting shops and thousands of job losses. Aileen Clark reports.
Wendy Bendel has been campaigning against fixed odds betting machines for the last 4 years, since her partner Lee killed himself. He was no longer able to cope with his addiction to the fast spin, high stakes gambling, which for him was anything but a game.
I'm delighted and sad as well, but I'm delighted that the stakes come down from the £100 down to £2. That's fantastic for everybody that's been campaigning and have reasons, emotional reasons to be doing this. But it's sad that I've obviously had to be involved with it in the first place.
If your only experience of gambling is an occasional shot of an old fruit machine, these new machines are a world away. Punch in your lucky numbers, and when you think they must be about to come up, then you can bet up to £100 a spin. Keep going, and that can be £300 a minute.
So the UK government has made clear its intention to limit the maximum stake on these machines to £2. It's not clear yet when that will actually come into practice, but they say they will work with the betting industry on that to find a reasonable timetable.
But the betting industry say in Scotland, 500 bookmakers could close and 2,500 staff paid off as a result of this new regulation.
I think problem gambling is a much more complex problem than is associated with just one product. You look at your average problem gambler, they'll bet online, they'll bet in casinos, they'll bet in amusement arcades, and yes, they'll bet in betting shops. So what's needed if the government's to get a comprehensive solution to problem gambling is measures that work across industry.
But it was on fixed odds machines that this former gambler regularly lost his entire wages. He's pleased that the stake per spin is being lowered, but says the sheer number of bookmakers on our streets sends all the wrong messages.
I think it's disgusting, I really do, and there's one there as well. It's clustering at its finest. I mean, the gambling industry knows exactly what it's doing. I mean, you wouldn't see 3 Gregs standing there or looking at or 3 shoe shops.
It will be 4 years on Monday since Wendy lost her partner Lee.
Lee didn't leave me because it was an easy option. He was just one of so many people that just simply couldn't see a way out. So this gives me a little bit of comfort knowing that, like I said, other people are going to benefit from it.
Doctors in Edinburgh say a simple blood test has identified previously unrecognised variations in type 1 diabetes. It's enabled some patients to come off insulin. A routine screening programme was set up after doctors discovered that one patient had a genetic form of the disease. They hope it'll be rolled out across Scotland. Our health correspondent Lisa Summers reports.
Well, your blood tests today were amazing, as ever.
Sophie's results were not always so positive. She was diagnosed with diabetes aged 8 and has spent much of her life struggling to manage her condition.
My mum said I cried every single night for 6 weeks. Why me? I was very restricted, and as a small child, birthday parties, birthday cakes, and as soon as you tell somebody you can't have something, they desperately want it.
Her sugar levels are all over the place. Sometimes
a chance discovery when she was pregnant found she had a genetic variation of diabetes, which meant she didn't need insulin.
If you contrast that with this graph here, which is Sophie's blood sugar levels now on tablet treatment. And what you can see is the blue line there is her average sugar levels, and you can see that Sophie's sugar levels are incredibly good. They're virtually normal.
Sophie doesn't have to monitor her blood sugars, she just takes daily tablets.
27 years I've been on insulin, I just didn't think that I would ever be on anything but insulin. It was just elation and disbelief.
Sophie's story is amazing. It is almost a miracle. The criteria that we use to diagnose the different forms of diabetes, type 1, type 2, genetic diabetes, these are not perfect criteria. And we recognised very early on that if Sophie didn't have type 1 diabetes, then there may be other people attending our clinic at the Western who we thought had type 1 diabetes, but actually maybe had an alternative form of diabetes.
They now screen everyone, and while many need to stay on insulin, some have been able to come off it altogether or change their treatments. This blood test is not expensive, it costs £6, but it can make a huge difference to doctors' understanding of the variations in type 1 diabetes, and it can allow them to tailor treatments for individual patients.
If you identify that somebody has a genetic form of diabetes, then it can have a transformative effect on their life. We've seen that with Sophie. Sophie's life is now very different because she no longer has to take insulin injections, she no longer has to finger prick to do blood tests 10, 15 times per day.
To hear, that there's small children that have come off insulin, that's the ones that really get me, because that's me, that's what I see.
Lisa Summers, reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
The price of oil has continued to rise today, passing another milestone at $80 for a barrel of Brent crude, the global benchmark based on North Sea output. Our business and economy editor, Douglas Fraser's here now. How significant is this?
Well, as you say, it's a milestone. It shows how much change there has been just in quite recent months. If you go back to last summer, the barrel of oil, benchmark barrel of oil, was trading at less than $50. Nearly 2 years ago, it fell to $30 per barrel. And you can see from this chart just how deep this dip has been for oil prices. $115 nearly 4 years ago, back to 80 now. Now, that dip explains why there was a huge contraction in the oil and gas sector. It hit the northeast of Scotland in particular very hard. About 60,000 jobs were lost in Britain, direct and indirectly dependent on the industry. Now, if it's sustained at higher levels again, then you could see investment coming back into the industry. But of course, the flip side of that is for users of oil, for drivers. Prices have been rising. At the start of this week, the average British price for petrol for 1 litre, £1.25, for diesel, £1.28. The expectation is that's going to go up. Now, what will decide whether it goes up? Partly worldwide demand is quite buoyant, that pushes prices up, but the supply problem is there as well. And it's really about heightened tensions in the Middle East. Will Iran be stopped from exporting oil because of its dispute with the United States? And also tensions between Saudi Arabia and Iran. There's a very small stretch of water between these two countries, and that's where an awful lot of exported oil passes through in very large tankers.
Douglas Fraser, thank you very much for explaining that. Now, the Chancellor has been visiting financial technology companies in Scotland. Philip Hammond was in the capital to reassure asset managers that Edinburgh would continue to be a financial services hub after Brexit. BBC Scotland requested an interview with Mr Hammond, but it was declined. More details have emerged in the case of a Scottish Sikh man, Jagtar Singh Johal, who's been held in India for 6 months without charge. India's anti-terrorism unit alleges that the 31-year-old from Dumbarton delivered cash to the former head of the Khalistan Liberation Force. That's a separatist group banned in India. A court will hear legal arguments next week before making a decision on whether he'll be charged. Brendan O'Hara has resigned as the SNP's Culture, Media and Sport spokesman at Westminster. The party confirmed that the Argyll and Bute MP had left the role for what were described as personal reasons. It's not known whether he'll remain on the Parliament's Culture, Media and Sport Committee. Hannah Bardell has replaced Mr O'Hara as the party's culture spokesperson. Internet providers are being urged to take a tougher stance over websites that encourage people to take their own lives. BBC Scotland can reveal that the call from a bereaved mother who lost her daughter to suicide is now being backed by an MSP who's written to search engine providers and social media companies asking them to take action. The First Minister's described it as a very serious issue. Fiona Stalker reports.
My daughter took her own life. It'll be 3 years now in August. I just can't find the words to tell you how horrified I was and how angry I was at these sites were allowed to exist. Loads of people.
Deanna Cruikshank telling the story of her daughter Jo's suicide. The pain never goes. Like many who take their own lives, she'd done online searches before she died. Deanna's demanding action from internet providers. Her case has been taken up by MSP Gillian Martin.
And of course this is just one of a lot. I can't even remember the ones now that were on my daughter's laptop. I think I blanked them all out.
You will. These sites describe methods that people can use to take their own lives. So to counter this, some suicide prevention organisations have to pay tens of thousands of pounds to search engines to give prominence to their sites, which offer support to those at risk.
How quickly they come up is obviously shocking. It takes seconds to find a website like that. And then when you click on them, it almost looks like they're from almost a therapy perspective, but actually they're the opposite of that. They're enabling and targeting vulnerable people and giving them the knowledge and tools to be able to take their own lives.
Deanna and Gillian's concerns were this afternoon raised at First Minister's questions.
Search engine providers and social media should always take responsibility for preventing access to any form of dangerous content, which obviously includes material which advocates suicide methods.
One of the major search engine operators, Google, said, "When you search for certain queries relating to suicide, we automatically show the Samaritans 24-hour helpline number. We provide advertising grants to UK charities so that their ads appear in Google against relevant search queries." Deanna recently held a fundraising event to celebrate what would have been Jo's 39th birthday. Money that could go towards paying for more online pop-up ads, which may offer a lifeline to those who've lost hope. She knows only too well what the alternative is.
Could anybody create a site like that and think it's okay? I don't know. Something needs to be done about it, definitely.
Fiona Stalker reporting Scotland, Aberdeen.
And if you've been affected by any of the issues in Fiona's report, you can get help and advice on the BBC's Action Line. That's the number there. A village for homeless people in Edinburgh is getting ready to welcome its first residents. The development, built by the social enterprise Social Bite, aims to offer an alternative to hostels and B&Bs. People living there will also get help from dedicated support workers. Our reporter, Andrew Black, has been for a visit.
On this piece of once derelict land in Edinburgh, a new community is taking shape. This village has been built with a special purpose to provide a place to stay for homeless people.
No, but I think
Dana is currently homeless. At the moment she's trying to secure accommodation through her local council, but she sees huge advantages in what the homeless village has to offer.
So here we are. What do you think of it?
Oh, it's nice. It smells fresh. It looks comfortable and homely.
And there are loads of great facilities in here.
Yeah, I mean, they've got 2 bedrooms, same size, kitchen facilities so they can cook their own things rather than just having a kettle like most people will be used to, or some people won't even have that facility. They've got their own bathroom, TV and TV area as well. It's going to provide them with security and stability. It's almost like a second chance, I'd say. Social interaction, stuff that they're not actually had in a long time. Your freedom's taken from you, so they're going to get that independence back.
The development in Granton has been built by the social enterprise Social Bite. There are 10 2-bedroom houses, but there's also a place where residents can gather socially and get advice on things like finding a job.
If you find yourself homeless and you present, you'll typically go into either a hostel or a bed and breakfast. Those things are typically privately run for profit. Typically people get a single bed and a kettle, at best, and they get almost no support. So we're really hoping that this will provide a bit of a viable alternative to those kinds of temporary accommodations.
And the village has also attracted the interest of the Scottish Government.
I think it's a very special development, and you don't have to be on site very long to have that sense of growing community, and that there's something very special has been created here today.
It's taken 18 months of work to get the village up and running. The first residents will be moving in this summer. Andrew Black, Reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
You're watching BBC Reporting Scotland. It's 16 minutes to 7. A reminder of tonight's top story. There's been support in Scotland for the UK government's plans to cut the maximum stake on fixed odds betting terminals from £100 to just £2. And still to come, a UK astronaut Tim Peake touches down in Edinburgh. In football, Livingston's push for promotion to the Premiership continues tonight. The Championship club are at home to Partick Thistle in the first leg of the playoff final. While Thistle are fighting for their top-flight survival, Livingston are out to complete a remarkable return to the top division. David Curry charts their rise and fall and resurgence.
If you like motivational slogans, you'll love Livingston's dressing room. While ice baths may not be your thing, ahead of the big push for the Premiership, Livy seem pretty chilled.
We try and make sure players come into work and enjoy it, but obviously they work hard, and as I say, we have a bit of banter with the boys, and then hopefully they can take into games a wee bit more relaxed. We know it's two massive games coming against a very good side, so in Partick Thistle got a fantastic squad of players, and we know it's going to be very difficult, but we just try and relax the players and go and enjoy the next two games.
Livingston's next couple of games might be enjoyable, but the club's short history has been tempestuous, marking their rise and fall and rise. In 1995, lowly Meadowbank Thistle relocated to the West Lothian Newtown, changing their name to reflect their new home. By 2001, Livingston had risen from the bottom tier of senior football to the Scottish Premier League. But by 2004, it was in financial administration. That didn't stop them winning the League Cup, beating Hibs that year in the final at Hampden. 2 years later, they were relegated. Then, in 2009, Livy were back in administration and demoted to the bottom tier of Scottish football. Up and down since then, the appointment of David Hopkin as manager in 2016 has been the catalyst for a recent resurgence.
A couple of years ago they were down a couple of divisions. They've come back up in the playoff final against Partick Thistle, and we've been saying for months on the BBC, if there's anyone going to upset the Premiership team, it would be Livingston with the style of play they have. The manager's got them well drilled, and there seems a real team spirit in there. It's all down to him and the way he approaches things.
After finishing runners-up in the Championship this season, Livy beat Dundee United in the playoff semi-final. Now, only Partick Thistle stand in the way of Livingston rising again to Scottish football's top division. David Curry, Reporting Scotland.
Athletics and double world medalist Laura Muir says next year's European Indoors in Glasgow will be one of the highlights of her career. She's finished her vet studies and is now an ambassador for the event next March. And after controversial rule changes relating to testosterone levels, she says she'll happily race any of her rivals cleared to compete. Karadine Itzan reports.
On her marks for the European Indoors, an event close to her heart and for which she's now an official ambassador.
It was such a big moment in my career. It was my first international medal at a senior level, and to come away with 2 golds was a huge moment for me. So no, I've got very full memories of this competition, and just really excited for it to come to Glasgow. To have an opportunity to compete in front of a home crowd, it's just one you never want to miss. So yeah, so excited to be out there, and hopefully lots of friends and family in the audience.
Of course, the European Indoors here in March aren't the only big sporting event on the city's horizon. This summer, the Velodrome's hosting the European Track Cycling Championships, while here at Tollcross Pool, the European Swimming Championships take place as Glasgow looks to maximise the L word from the 2014 Commonwealth, legacy.
It's now the 5th ultimate sports city in the world, and for a city with just over 600,000 people, we really are punching above our weight. We're up there with New York, Melbourne, London, cities of that status. And that's a real testament to the fact that Glasgow is able to host these kind of events.
I really feel like, the kids seem to be much more in tune with what's going on and all the different sports and different athletes and things, so I think it's great.
When it comes to our own sport, athletics has just introduced new rules to limit testosterone levels in certain athletes, affecting a rival of Muir's, world and Olympic champion Caster Semenya.
I think we feel for everybody, and it's a very difficult situation, and I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, so I think we just all have to, race and just get on with it, and if, people are on the start line, then that's fine, I'll race against them.
She'll also be racing as a full-time athlete. Her vet study's finally over, now just the nervous wait for next week's results. Kerry Nidsan, reporting Scotland.
24-year-old Ian McKendry has defied doctors' warnings as a child that he'd never walk to become a spin cyclist. Now he's an instructor helping to revive his local gym. Maura Kinneborough has this report.
This is your warm-up section.
Growing up with cerebral palsy, it was quite hard at first because there were certain sports that I really wanted to try, but I couldn't play it because of my disability, so I felt like sidelined.
Or hand position 2.
He found a passion for cycle spinning and qualified to teach.
4, 3, 2, 1.
His family invested their savings to set up the studio.
It's great because Ian has a disability and people think if he can do it, I can do it. There's no pressure in Ian's classes, everybody goes at their own pace.
Classes are so popular,
I believe in you.
There's a waiting list.
You see how confident Ian is on the stage? It's brilliant.
There was nothing really in the hole and wanted to try something different, and I heard about this group.
Try to lose weight, support Ian. He's doing really well, he's really inspirational.
You know the thing that I love about all of you? No matter what challenge I throw at you, you face it.
Plans to expand go with the next aim, to become a master spinning instructor.
If you've got a dream and if you've got a goal, if you've got a passion that you want to achieve, know that it'll take time, but you just got to work hard and you just got to commit and you just got to believe in yourself. I did.
Go!
And if people say stuff, just say, you know what, I'm stronger than that.
Amazing, amazing effort.
Maura Kinneborough, reporting Scotland, Midlothian.
Timeline's over on BBC 2 at 7:30. Shireen and Glenn can tell us what's coming up.
Tonight, we're investigating claims that dozens of landlords and their agents are charging illegal fees to their tenants.
The mother whose son went to fight against IS in Syria, who's hoping for answers to reports he was killed in fighting.
Legendary photographer Harry Benson joins us to talk about his latest exhibition.
Plus live magic in the studio. That's Timeline 7:30, BBC 2 Scotland.
Finally, the UK astronaut Tim Peake has landed in Edinburgh with his spaceship. The Soyuz capsule that brought him back to Earth is going on display at the National Museum of Scotland. Our science correspondent Kenneth MacDonald was there for Touchdown.
Tim Peake spent 6 months on the International Space Station. His Soyuz spacecraft still bears the scars of re-entry at 17,000 miles an hour.
The abuse that the capsule gets coming through that scorching atmosphere, 1500 degrees C, and you can see evidence of all that burning on the capsule. But really the Soyuz represents to me the entire mission. It was my lifeboat for 6 months on board the space station should anything have gone wrong, and of course it saw us through a safe launch as well.
The capsule and Major Peake's spacesuit are here at the National Museum until August.
We do much more than display objects. It's also about educating young people about STEM subjects, about science, technology, perhaps inspiring some of them into a future career in science. And what better way to do that than through space?
For these lucky primary pupils, a chance to ask the big questions, like how you go to the toilet in space and what was it like up there?
Really fun and see what all the questions were like and see what happens in space and stuff.
Would you like to be an astronaut one day?
Yes.
Where would you like to go in space?
You're trying to get a word
in, Ed. What did you learn?
That there was other galaxies, there was other planets in this galaxy.
And would you like to be an astronaut soon?
Yes.
Where would you go?
Venus.
And would you like to be an astronaut?
Nah.
Why not?
I don't know. I don't want to miss my family.
In return, though, you do get an unforgettable experience.
Going up into space is incredible. The first orbit of planet Earth, these are all magnificent memories. The first view of Earth from the cupola. But if I had to put it into one moment, it would be leaving the airlock on the spacewalk. It was absolutely unbelievable.
The purpose of this tour is to inspire people of all ages, and all I can say is that in this case, it certainly worked. Kenneth MacDonald, reporting Scotland. Still wishing he was in space.
Is that a nappy he was wearing? Glad tidings anyway on the weather on Earth from Christopher.
Sally, thank you. Hello there, good evening to you. Another lovely spring day right across the country. Sunshine and blue sky. Here's the satellite picture, the view from space. Really hardly a cloud in the sky in places. And we reach 18 degrees in Glasgow, 19 in the northwest at Kinlochhew. Over the next few days, well, high pressure is still with us, but it's subtly shifting southeastwards. That's going to allow weather fronts just to graze the northwest, bringing some cloud and for some, a few spots of rain. Dry tonight, though, and it stays dry right overnight with clear skies, meaning, once again, fairly chilly at times. Town and city temperatures around 4 to 6 Celsius, but a few sheltered glens across Grampian and the borders, perhaps seeing a touch of frost. So, tomorrow, for most of us, a dry and fine morning, much like this morning, some lovely spells of sunshine, but notice in the northwest some thicker cloud, a weather front just grazing the northwest, a few spots of rain at times, but for most, another dry day. And by mid-afternoon, the lion's share of the sunshine still with us across central and southern Scotland, and temperatures up to around 17, maybe 18 degrees. Further north, a little bit of cloud at this point, and some of that cloud could just extend further south and eastwards. It shouldn't spoil things too much, but further north and west, a little bit cooler because of that cloud. Bit of a breeze as well, but by this point in the afternoon, any rain on that weather front should have faded away. The rest of the afternoon into the evening, and it's dry with some evening spells of sunshine pretty much across the board. To the weekend, it's a tale of two halves. Saturday looks good, dry, fine, sunny and warm at times. Temperatures up to around 20 degrees. Windy on the west coast, and you'll notice that rain, a weather front behind me, coming our way on Sunday. But Saturday afternoon, cup final. Plenty of sunshine, set fair. Winds light to moderate from the southwest. Coverage across the BBC. Here's Sunday then. There's that weather front working its way into a cloudier day for all. Most of the rain we think probably confined towards the west coast and the far northwest. Elsewhere, hopefully, staying dry. That's the forecast for now.
Thanks very much, Chris. And that's Reporting Scotland. I'll be back with the late bulletin just after the 10 o'clock news. Until then, from everyone on the team right across the country, have a very good evening. Bye.